everyone. Welcome in to another episode of Bruins Tape to Tape. I'm your host right now it's evening, but who knows when you'll be listening to this. My name is Caroline, and I'm joined with my favorite co-host, Maria. Hey, Maria.
Hello, Caroline. Welcome in, everyone. Thanks for tuning in and giving us another listen.
Yeah, and we've got another visit from our friend of the pod, Momo, to talk more about our new players that we've got on the roster. So, hey, Mo.
Hello, I appreciate you guys having me again.
Absolutely.
We love having you, Mo. You keep us in line.
Yeah, he's got good takes. Lots of hot takes. So, little bit of housekeeping before we dive in, but of course, today we're going to be talking about our new goaltending acquisition that came via trade right before free agency. Joonas Korpisalo coming to us from Ottawa, and there's been a lot of interesting takes about his acquisition and what role he's going to be playing on the team. And also, since we last met, we have a new voice of the Boston Bruins, Judd Sirott, which I think we all kind of knew was going to be the choice. It was the natural choice. So we're very excited. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then just for some of our newer listeners, I know our current listeners have been a little bit spoiled this summer with our podcasts coming out bright and early on Tuesday mornings for, the morning rush. But as we get closer to our regular season start, you can definitely listen to us either on YouTube, on Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to podcasts. Typically Tuesday nights or Wednesday nights, we like to give a heads up, but that's usually when you can find us, depending on the game schedule, which is fast approaching. So I'm very excited. We're under a month. We're going to start seeing the guys returning back to Boston after some very interesting and exciting travels, as we've seen on social media. We saw, David Pastrnak got married. A lot of the guys have been traveling all over the world, and so it's a lot of fun to see them on vacation. But soon they'll be heading back to Boston, and we can't wait. So,
was not just in the city, though. He was actually interviewed live today during the WEEI Jimmy Fund radio telethon.
Nice. Well, yeah, they must slowly be starting to come back in, and because it's August, right? It's getting to be late August. If they've got kids, I don't know exactly when school starts in Massachusetts, but in New York, it's after Labor Day, and I know some other places it might be right before, so they're definitely all coming back. But before we dive in, we'll just have a real quick word from our sponsors. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. What are your self-care non-negotiables? Maybe you never skip leg day or therapy day. When your schedule is packed with kids' activities, big work projects, and more, it's easy to let your priorities slip. Even when we know what makes us happy, it's hard to make time for it. But when you feel like you have no time for yourself, non-negotiables like therapy are more important than ever. My weekly therapy appointment empowers me to be the best version of myself. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day again with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/THPN today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/THPN. Know the beautiful thing about being a sports fan? There's only like 2 days the whole year without a game. 2. With so much happening and so much action, that makes just about every day game day at DraftKings Sportsbook. It's super easy for first-timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, and place your first bet.
It really couldn't be any easier, any simpler. And if you're new to DraftKings, you got to check this out. New customers bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or in West Virginia visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. Deposit and eligibility restrictions apply. See term and responsible gaming resources at dkng.co/base.
All right. So, Judd Sirott, I'm thrilled.
I'm excited.
He's great. He's got enthusiasm. I know what I'm excited about, but I want to hear about you guys and what about his calls that you're the most excited about? Because I got my reasons, but I'd love to hear from you.
Well, I'm going to be full disclosure. When Dave Gosher moved on to the gig that he took in Las Vegas and Judd Sirott was brought in, I selfishly was rooting for someone else to get that position because I knew he had applied for it. So, maybe my thoughts were jaded during his early tenure here. And I thought, oh gosh, I think he might be trying a little too hard. I think there was still some dynamics that needed to be worked through between he and Bob Beers because Bob and Dave had worked together for so long and had such a good mojo going on that it did take me a while to warm up to Judd. But I will say that I think once he toned down some of the theatrics of his play-by-play calls, I think he's been awesome. And I'm really looking forward to his engagement with Andy Brickley and seeing the development of a different dynamic than the dynamic that was Jack and Brick, which for the most part, it was a good dynamic, although there were times where I thought Jack should let Brick speak more.
Yeah.
Brick kind of got lost there in the last year or two, where he was just kind of like an add-on that didn't really add much. And I think that's what Judd will bring. Is when I listen to the radio broadcasts, as you said, Maria, early on, Judd was kind of hard to listen to. I think he was forcing it. I think he was trying too much.
Good words.
Where he was trying to stand out where he didn't need to. And then slowly, even in that first year, I would say halfway through, he started to settle down, get more relaxed, and just call the game. And then he and Dave, towards the end, really had a good back and forth. Or him and Bob, sorry. They had a really good back and forth, where Beers would come in and they'd kind of go back and forth off each other. And it was a nice dynamic. And I'm pretty sure that's what him and Brick will have. Probably not at the beginning, but it will be nice to kind of see how they kind of organically work together and grow that relationship. And the good thing is Judd's got experience calling hockey games. I mean, he worked for the Chicago Wolves for 12 seasons. So he's no stranger to doing, broadcast. He did, he did the radio for a while. So it's gonna be fun. I'm excited for sure.
And I think Jack's given him a ringing endorsement.
Yeah. And I think, it's being on TV is probably going to be a little bit of a change and an adjustment. I mean, granted, most of the time he's not in front of the screen, but they do have those brief periods where they're on the screen. But like you guys said, I think I'm the most excited about the back and forth that I think will be developing between him and Brick, because we really got to see some of that with Brick this last season, when Jack was out and he had the opportunity to partner up with, I think it was Adam Faust, and it was so much more conversational, and it was the most that I'd heard Brick speak during a game like ever. And the things that he said were really insightful and really interesting. And he gave us a little bit of a different perspective when he observed something, whether it was a questionable hit or, as we kind of had learned, he was kind of not a soft-spoken person, but just a reserved person. And so we started to learn, like, oh, when he says this,
when he
that
gets
is
worked up about something, there's a damn good reason for it.
Yes, like during the playoffs with the whole goalie interference thing, some of the things that he said, like it would come across as very reserved, like, oh, that doesn't sound like he's mad or insulting. And it's like the rest of us all know, we're like, oh no, that is like the most insulting thing he could possibly say to you. So I'm going to play a super short clip. This was Judd calling David Pasternak's overtime winning goal against Toronto this year.
He's got Pasternak going. It's banked on in front. Pasternak, the backhand. He scores! Did someone ask for some pasta? David Pasternak, 154 into overtime, wins the series for the Bruins.
So I love that because you can still hear his enthusiasm and excitement. I mean, there was, I think, some brief talk about what's his name, my least favorite ESPN announcer going into that game or becoming an announcer maybe for Boston, and I was like, that can't be. He's the least exciting human. Like, he's not excited about the game. We need to have somebody, like, for as much as people criticize Jack, like, oh, he's too much of a homer, and but he's our home team guy, so I want him to be excited.
It's to be expected,
right.
You're employed by the team or the station that has an ownership interest in the team, and of course, I would think that you are going to show some loyalty
exactly
to that team. Now, were there occasions that he would go off on a bit of a tangent with some of his analogies where you're like, what the hell is going on here right now? But to know Jack Edwards was to love Jack Edwards for those.
Right.
Exactly. And he was a Sports Center guy, right? Didn't he get his start at Sports Center?
He did.
So he needed to kind of have that Sports Center type vibe to stand out. So I think that's kind of where it kept it.
Yeah.
And Caroline, I think two things that you were probably appreciative that Jack or that Judd was signed as one. The Bruins, Nesson didn't sign your least favorite play-by-play guy, who was rumored, right? Who was that again?
Sean McDonough, because he's, I think, a native of the area, right? Or from Massachusetts.
I told you not to worry about that because, first of all,
I know, but it would be awful. Awful.
Their network is paying him a boatload of money.
I know.
And then the other thing is, one of the criticisms of Judd that my brother has is on the radio, Judd will bring up stats too much and bring up too much like information about players, which I get it on radio because you can't see the play, but on TV, to me, I would rather have a broadcast that doesn't necessarily call the game constantly because I can see what's going on. I don't necessarily need someone, but I want someone that will give me, information or stats or have Brick give me some analysis during the play as to why a breakout worked or, something that maybe McAvoy did to box someone out in the crease or something like that, where I can see the breakout. I don't need someone telling me who's passing the puck to who. So
Right,
I'm
right.
hopeful that the broadcasts maybe get a little bit more informational,
Yeah.
and kind of hopefully don't rank last again like they have the last 5 some years or whatever.
Yeah.
So it'll
Yep.
be nice. It'll be nice. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Well, we'll need to give them time to get that
Oh, yeah.
dynamic developed, right? Between
Oh yeah.
between the two of them, as now Bob Beers will likely need to develop a new dynamic with whomever is going to
Yeah.
fill Judd's shoes. And again, I hope it's
Maybe it'll be Adam Faust.
Well,
He was great for a sub.
Someone who's local here,
Yeah.
who hosts a Bruins hockey show every Saturday, who I think is very, very good at calling hockey and doing play-by-play. And, you know, I haven't reached out to him on X directly just to see if, hey, are you throwing your name in the hat? Whether he would even answer that, I don't know. But I'm pulling for this gentleman if he is interested and is considering throwing his name in the hat for that role.
Yeah. So to switch gears a little bit, Korpisalo. So we're all aware of the circumstances of the trade. This was Mo, as I think you like to call it, a hockey trade. This was purely business. I think, you know, what to kind of maybe set the tone of the conversation, you know, we're not going to talk about why did they have to do it or hash into the details about, you know, oh, well, they should have done this or they should have done that. End of the day, the Bruins were in a position that was not really in their favor. Yes, they had an extra goaltender, but the market for goaltenders wasn't super hot. You had a couple of folks who were on the move, but, you know, these GMs don't operate in a vacuum. There's no way that they don't know generally who's going where, what their plans are, right? So I believe, was it Markstrom who went to New Jersey?
I think so.
So like there are only so many teams that would be in a market for a goaltender like Linus Ullmark. They knew they had to unload him. They knew, you know, what they were going to have to pay for in exchange for whatever else they were going to get. Was not going to be for no money, right? Like,
right.
This is the business of hockey, right? And it was a fine deal. Bruins got a great prospect out of it ultimately in their draft pick, and they got I think, reliable, known entity in Korpisalo, right? He's played in the NHL. He's been a starter. He's done, you know, the minimum number of games multiple years in a row that they would be looking for from him as a backup goalie. And at this point, from my own personal experience, and you guys can agree or disagree, seeing what they did with Linus Ullmark coming from a comparably bad team, I trust the system. So I'm not worried. I don't get the complaints, but then again, I think lots of folks want the Boston Bruins to look like their fantasy team, and they don't live in a reality
The world
of an $90 million cap. So,
you know,
Yeah.
to some degree, we're listening to some of the same commentary as when the Bruins picked up Linus Ullmark.
same.
You know, why do they want this guy? He's a bum. He's this. He's that.
$5 million. Oh my God.
$5 million. That's crazy. I mean, you know, we don't need to rehash all of that. This doesn't seem much different to me.
Yeah.
right? In that, you need a steady backup. I think you need a proven backup.
Yeah.
Our hope and our intention is that Jeremy Swayman is going to be the Bruins' #1 goalie starting the season in October.
Right.
Is he going to be able to play every game? No.
Right.
I think we've learned over the last few years with this trend of being able to, doesn't need to be, split duties,
Right.
but there needs to be a workload balance if you're going to get the best out of your #1 goalie during the course of the playoffs.
Mhm.
And I see Korpisalo as a very similar reclamation project as Ullmark
Exactly.
was.
So, what do you make of the criticism of why would you go out and get this guy who had a terrible year last year, pay him a couple $1 million when you've got Brandon Bussey waiting in the wings?
Yeah, I mean, it's a valid point, but at least for me, Korpisalo has more experience than Bussey. Bussey is
NHL, let's say
is
that.
a good
NHL.
is a good AHL goalie, but he hasn't played in the NHL, and that's a
Mhm.
completely different monster, a completely different beast. And at this point, in my mind, the Bruins are still pushing to be a Stanley Cup contender. They're not trying to
Absolutely.
rebuild. They're not trying to see who they have in prospects, right? It's not what was a decade or so ago when they were kind of crappy and kind of middling. So he doesn't cost that much. In the whole
Mhm.
scheme of things, he's what, $3 million a year? And the cap went up this year. The cap's supposed to go up another $4 million, I think, next year, right?
Mhm.
Isn't supposed to go to 92. The Bruins are going to clean up another 1.3-ish million to get rid of Riley's cap off the dead cap. So they're going to have a ton of cap space to play with. It's one of those things where even if it doesn't work out, he's only got 2 years left, and maybe they buy him out, maybe they try to trade him again. It's
Mhm.
really a win-win situation. And
Right.
he's had good seasons, right? Columbus, he was pretty solid, and he's not going to have to, well, hopefully not have to play 50 games this year. He's going to have to probably play, what, 30-ish, I would say, hopefully. So, and goalie Bob should fix him, should
Yeah.
help him, right?
Mhm.
And the biggest thing that I've heard and seen on the boards and whatnot is Korpisalo's biggest thing is he's not consistent, which is
Right.
a bad thing for a starting goalie.
Right.
Probably not the worst thing for a backup. So,
Right.
and he's good in high danger. And he was on Ottawa. Put that into context. Their defense is shit. He's going to
Shit,
face a lot of
yeah.
shots. They're not,
Yeah.
they're going to play a different system than the Bruins, where the Bruins are more reliable in their own zone. They've signed Lindholm, who's supposed to be a great kind of defensive wizard and center, should help. They got Zadorov, who's a beast. Carlo, hopefully, if he stays healthy, is blossoming into one of the best and probably underrated defensive defenseman. So I think he's coming into the right situation, kind of like what Ullmark was when he came over from Buffalo. And I'm worried, but I'm not that concerned, if that
Right.
makes sense. So
Definitely.
Well-
And looking at his statistics, Ottawa year aside, when he was in LA, Columbus, and what is that? Oh, LA and Columbus, the previous season, he had over a 90 save percentage, right? He had 921 in LA, and he had 911 in Columbus. So for a backup goaltender, I find that acceptable.
Yeah.
Sure. 90, 92. I'm fine with that. Again, this person is not carrying the weight of the team.
Mm-mm.
So, and he's played at this level. That's the biggest difference. I don't think people truly understand that, to kind of paraphrase something that Andrew Rakoff said very recently on Skate Pod. People see this guy make a fantastic save in a preseason game, and they make then the assumption that you can extrapolate that to a season's worth at the NHL level. And how many times did we see, even just last season, some of our rookie players coming up because they needed them, right? Not because they necessarily were like, oh, you've been doing a great job, right? Like Mason Lohrei was coming up a handful of times because of injuries. And you definitely got the sense that, okay, he's doing okay at this level, but he really needs to go back to truly understand the difference, right? The same thing with John Beecher. He got sent back. When he came back up, he was running, right? Like there is such a huge difference. And just because you see this guy be phenomenal in Providence doesn't mean anything, because he's not facing players like Connor McDavid and David Pasternak on a nightly basis in the AHL.
And, at some degree too, you have to look at, are you doing a disservice at some point to the growth and development of a particular player, especially a goalie, because they are unique characters in and of themselves. And, I think back to what a disaster it was from Malcolm Subban. Just that, it couldn't have gone any worse for a young goalie, to be brought up from Providence into, thinking that you were giving him a soft landing spot with a start against an NHL team that, was not doing well. And the kid gets, lit up like a Christmas tree. So, I think to some degree it's the Bruins are being responsible and respectful to the growth of the player and to the investment that they've made in that player. And honestly, do we really want to go into next season with, again, it's going to say this with confidence, Jeremy Swayman as our number one goalie? Do you really want Swayman playing 60 or 70 games?
No.
And it's his first, first foray as your number one guy?
Right.
No. So how are you going to do that with, a player that you're not sure is quite ready to handle that level of play?
Right. Exactly. I think of him more as an insurance policy, especially considering not that investing in Jeremy Swayman is a risk, but paying a lot of money for a player for a length of time is a risk for the business, right? Because he could get hurt. He could all of a sudden stink.
He could be a bust. Look at like Locker and Raycroft. They were supposed to be guys that were awesome, and they were out the next year.
Right.
So as much as fans want the Bruins to give him an 8-year deal, I bet the Bruins don't want to give him an 8-year deal.
I bet they don't want to either. Yeah.
No, I think they'll probably want to go 4 or 5 and see how he
I'd
ages.
I'd be hesitant.
Right. So it's one of those things. Yeah. So, and you need a more, how would you say it? Right. You need a more reliable backup, because your number one goalie can't be Broder or Roy and play 70 some games again, where your backup is 6 games a year. It's just, it doesn't work going into the playoffs. You need to be fresh. Especially now where the game is more side to side lateral in the offensive zone, where they're trying to do those kind of dot to dot passes for the one timer. where I feel like maybe back in the old days, it was more kind of north-south. This is more of an east-west kind of game, as well as feed the point, shoot it to the net, go for tips, go for rebounds, where your goalies need to be more athletic. And I would think, Caroline, correct me if I'm wrong, but you want your goalies to be more athletic, which the older you get, the more you lose that ability.
Right.
So you don't probably want a goalie signed long term when they're in their mid 30s. So hopefully, and Korpisalo's right there. He's 30, 31,
He's 30.
somewhere around. Yeah.
He's
So
30, yeah.
Yep.
he
Yeah, I
should-
mean, you want to consider him, and you want any good backup goaltender to be like, he's the thumper. He's there.
right.
He's old, reliable. And to your point, the expectation of these goaltenders being a lot more physical and more athletic, that is physically more demanding, and we're not going to see the trend of lightening your number one goalie's workload go away, right? Like,
Right.
it's pretty well established at this point that the days of 75, 80 plus games for a starting goaltender are gone.
That's not plausible anymore in today's
Because- And the
NHL.
game, and part of the reason is, that they were able to do that was because the game was very different too, right? Like, they were not playing the same style of hockey. And I remember hearing a conversation during the season of how, yes, nobody else was splitting up the with the rotation quite like the Bruins were, but that trend has started to increase, and that you can see a significant difference, positive significant difference for goalies. The number one case being Connor Hellebuck, who over the last 3 seasons has been slowly decreasing his number of starts, and arguably has been getting better and better, even though he's getting older, right? So time is going by. He's playing a fewer games. Now, granted, in the 21-22 season, he played 66 games, which is just absolutely outrageous as a 28-year-old. Last season, he played 64. And then this past season, he played 60, and he's got a Vezina to his name. So, the last time he won a Vezina, he played 58 games. So there's something there. And, you want, if you're expecting a little bit more in terms of workload from that backup goalie, you want to have someone that you don't have to really train from the start, right? Like, it's just, Bussy just doesn't have the experience. And maybe this year we will see. Maybe there's going to be a handful of games that he's going to get called up to serve as backup just for the hell of it. Who knows?
It would make sense.
It would. I think so. Especially
Almost
if they have plans to allow Korpisalo to use his time in Boston as that launch pad that a lot of pundits have been saying that, it's a great spot to be in, because like Halak, you can jump, right, and get a good deal. Vladar, you can jump and get a pretty decent next deal, right? So I'm not worried.
Isn't the NHL
I'm rarely
schedule-
worried though.
Yeah. Isn't the NHL schedule this year a lot of like game, day off? Isn't it a lot? Isn't it kind of
Yes.
hectic? So
It's very hectic.
It is.
So how do you, I was just going to make that point, with all the parity in the league, and we saw that parity play out for most of last season, where there were some really tight playoff races right up until the last week of the season. So when you're in those situations, or, one of those god awful, West Coast strings out, to California, or you're going, out to the furthest points of Canada, and some nights you're playing back to back. Don't you want to know that, all right, this is how I'm going to run my goaltending situation, and not have to worry about, well, gee, I don't know, we got the young kid up here. I'm not sure this is a good spot for him to be in, but
Mhm.
then I don't want to play our number one guy back to back. And,
Right.
it's like every point is valuable
Mhm.
in today's NHL. And you
It
can't
really is.
any throwaway points.
Not
Right.
anymore. Not
And as
anymore.
the Bruins have shown, the games early on really matter. If you can rack up those
Yes.
points,
You rack up,
kind of
right.
coast, and
Right.
you
Yeah.
have to. So, do you guys think because I'd have to look it up and see how the call ups, send downs, all that stuff works out. But do you guys see at any point in the season the Bruins call up Bussy and kind of do a 3-man goalie rotation? Like you play Swayman, you play
Yeah.
Korpisalo. If Korpisalo sucks, then they'll bring up Bussy and play him a little bit back and forth. Does that even make sense to try that? Because I think goalies would need to kind of get into that rhythm and that groove and play.
Yeah.
But maybe they'll want a couple of days off and stuff.
They're such creatures of habit, even more so
Yeah.
than the skaters on a team that,
Mhm.
I'm not sure how that dynamic would work of trying to rotate, the three of them.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting. I mean, Monty likes to move pieces around.
I mean, yeah, I think though, if you just look at the numbers, so I'll bring out my handy dandy calculator.
Is it a calculator watch?
No, my watch is too. I can't do. I mean, I could if I really tried, but I don't think I could navigate it. So, if we think so, Swayman went from 41 games last season. I think he's probably going to be asked to do at least 50,
Mhm.
right? 50
Yeah.
games. So you've got that's 32 starts. And if you were to divide that by 3, I mean, if you were to take that and you gave 2/3 to Korpisalo and like 1/3 of those games potentially to Brandon Bussy, I mean, that's still 20 games, 22 games for Korpisalo, 8 or
Right.
10 games for Bussy in an 82 game season.
Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
I still think that, I mean, maybe it wouldn't be that many for Bussy, but I'm confident he's going to be spending more time in Boston, whether it's practice,
Right.
serving in that way. I'm not going to be surprised if we see him a couple of times, 2-3 times minimum, but
Bussy.
right.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
It'll
I
be
don't know.
interesting. And yeah, I don't know how many people or if you guys have faith, but I have faith in goalie Bob that he'll attempt to fix him and give him some pointers. And it's going to be up to Korpisalo to actually
Listen.
go through with it and listen and be open to it. But I still, maybe it's the optimist in me, but I have faith in the Bruins front office and their ability to maybe get behind more younger players and more prospects and try to give them a shot if they want to do it, right? There was talk about giving Lysell or Merkulov a chance. Maybe they'll give Bussy a chance and see if he can kind of prove himself. I don't think it's a given right now that Korpisalo is your backup, right? I mean, I would think Bussy could potentially, what if he has a gangbusters preseason and he,
I was just going to say,
right? So
we'll likely be seeing him in the preseason.
yeah,
For
I would
sure.
say probably
For
more
sure.
than him and Swayman will probably get a game, and that's probably about it, right? How many games is there in the preseason? 5?
3.
Five-ish.
No.
5-ish.
Because I know they're doing the one up in Buffalo.
Well, they got the development one that happens in
Right.
Buffalo. That's for just like the
prospects and
prospects.
Stuff, right? Yeah.
And then there's
I
I think 5.
I thought it was 5-ish.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm looking at their schedule right now. There's 4 that I see in the last week of September.
Right.
And then I think
There's at least 3 in
and
October.
there's 3 in October.
Mhm.
So
Okay. So there's enough for them
that's
to.
that's a good way, and again,
Right.
yeah, everybody should make their case.
I mean, that's how
During
Patra got on the
opportunity-
team.
Right.
Yep.
During the
Yep.
opportunities that they're given, make
Yep.
your case. Make
Yep.
your
Yep.
case.
Yep.
Yep.
So, but anyways, time will tell. We shall see what happens. Very curious. Just when you think you know what this team is going to do and how everything is going to go down, you realize, oh no, we don't know actually
We
what
don't
those
know shit.
conversations are.
Well, you know what? This is the first time in quite some time that going into training camp, there is a little, no, I don't want to say goalie drama, but there's questions around.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah.
You know, who will be the backup goal? Who
Right.
will actually be the backup goal?
Yeah. But for now, we'll close the chapter on Mr. Korpisalo, and as again we get closer to actual gameplay, we'll keep chatting about some more new folks on the roster and a little bit of a look back, I guess, as we get ready for the 24-25 season. But until then, thank you, Momo. Thank you, Maria.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Mo. Thank you.
And just
Alright.
remember, if you enjoyed the conversation, you can like and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter, on Threads, Mastodon. Hit that follow. Give us a review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and wherever you listen to
Podcasts.
podcasts. And follow us on YouTube
Appreciate it.
because we're pretty hilarious. But
Pretty funny
again,
looking too.
as I always like to say, go Bees.
Go Bruins.
Go Bees.